Cybercrime, the act of stealing people's personal information by breaking into computers and other IT devices, is on the rise. The large-scale hacking of phone provider TalkTalk has served as a reminder of the problem. But it's not just big business that's at risk. Many smaller firms are being targeted. And as Andrew Black reports, it can be very difficult to track down those responsible.
Ken Main is one of the many thousands of people across Scotland running a small business, all of whom are vulnerable to the emerging threat of cybercrime. Ken's salon was hit by cyber attackers who locked him out of his own system.
My manager opened up the salon. She went to open up the computer. On the computer was a word pad or a word note saying that we'd been hacked and all our information had been encrypted. And if we wanted it back, we would have to contact an email address.
He was forced to pay a ransom of €1,000 to regain access, but even then much of the information stored on his database was gone.
An average TalkTalk household already has 5 connected devices.
The problems posed by cybercrime have once again been thrown into sharp focus after the hacking of the phone and broadband provider TalkTalk, an act which may have compromised the bank's details of its 4 million customers.
We operate Britain's biggest unbundled broadband network.
Police now employ specialist officers to tackle the problem, but it can be difficult to track down those responsible.
A lot of these crimes can be very difficult to detect, and I would suggest protection is the biggest aspect that people have got to look after themselves online. With that idea, updating your operating system, make sure you've got antivirus installed, and probably one of the most important things, strong passwords, I would suggest really important. If you went out and left your house wide open with all your doors open and somebody broke into it, would you be surprised? If you do that, leave your computer unchecked without protection round about it, the reality is nowadays somebody's going to break into your computer.
And business leaders have also warned small firms to take the threat of cybercrime more seriously.
This is a £27 billion a year problem that's getting worse every single year. For the last year that figures are available, about 70% of small businesses had some form of cyber attack or attempted cyber attack on them. The year before that it was 60%. When you consider that every one of those attacks on average, if it's successful, costs a small business £4,000, then it's something that we need to start taking seriously.
At the same time, though, the Federation of Small Businesses says the authorities should also be doing more.
There's historically been a problem about how business crime is dealt with in compared to crime against private individuals. And I think we need a more robust reporting mechanism to the police and some sort of assurance that if we do report these crimes, then they are going to be followed up and taken seriously.
Back at the salon, Ken hopes to be fully up and running in the next day or so, but it's been a sobering experience.
There is a terrible feeling in the pit of your stomach. Fear, emotional issues. I was terrified, saying, what's happened here? How did somebody get so close to you? But over a period of time, as a businessman and self-employed, you have just got to get on with it.
His message to other business owners: get protected or risk an attack from cyber criminals.
That was Andrew Black reporting. Joining me now is Professor Bill Buchanan from Nopier University, an expert in computer security. Good evening, Professor Buchanan. That was a pretty worrying case study we heard there in Andrew's report. How widespread is the problem?
It's pretty widespread. We've seen it in major industry. Typically they will attack targets like the finance industry where you have sensitive data. So obviously they're really looking at extortion. If they can get control of systems, they will then encrypt it with a special key, and then it's almost impossible for it to be unbroken. The only way it can be unbroken is to pay the money. So it's a very difficult crime to actually follow up and limit the damage.
And it's not just even small businesses like we heard in the report there, even students are being attacked in this way.
Yeah, well, anyone who clicks on a link on an email is in danger of this. So it might contain an executable program which contains the ransomware. Once it's on the machine, it will straight away contact the headquarters or whoever's involved. It will create the encryption key, encrypt the files, and then tell the user that they need to pay the money to get the encryption key back. We can also get things like a drive-by download where someone visits a website and it contains the piece of malware in there. So I think the advice around keeping your virus scanner up to date and also having web protection on your email is a very good thing to do.
And who are the people who are doing this? Where are they based?
I couldn't really name. We can trace IP addresses to many regions of the world, and probably the same countries appear again and again. Whether those people are actually based in those countries is debatable. They tend to be using what's called proxy systems. So a proxy system is that the attack might source itself from a certain computer, but there are a whole lot of other computers behind that computer. It's almost impossible for police to really trace the actual end source of it. So the hackers tend to be based in countries that have got lower thresholds for the laws than they have in this country.
And how lucrative is it for these cyber criminals?
Well, the FBI reckon that there's been about an $18 million hit just this year alone, and that's likely to be the tip of the iceberg, and that many people, probably through the embarrassment of getting something like a Cryptolocker or crypto wall, won't actually report it. So these types of crimes go unreported. If you have a PhD dissertation that you've written and it's to be handed in and you haven't backed it up, then of course you will pay it, because every minute that goes past might be a greater risk if you're not getting your data back.
And you've heard of examples like that with students?
Yeah, there's many occasions. Obviously, students visit sites that maybe they shouldn't be visiting. They might click on links that they shouldn't be doing. So even students, even computing students, are open to this type of attack. So I think the main thing is that if you receive an email, then you've really got to watch when you click on it. We've seen cases where a phishing email is sent and it says a message of your daughter has fallen at school. Please contact us. Attached is a document which will outline what happened. The parents will often panic, click on the link, and they're infected by the ransomware.
And just very briefly, what would you suggest people could do to protect against this?
Users really need to back up their files as much as possible and probably disconnect from the network. In order of protecting against something, they just need to be savvy about some of the things that they actually get, and to make sure that they are wise in changing passwords and so on.
Okay.
We've observed on broadband providers that a simple password reset is done with someone's mother's maiden name. These days, that kind of data can actually be sourced fairly easily, such as through Facebook.
Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us this evening, Professor Bill Buchanan.